Hello, I'm Jessy and welcome to my channel, Jessyherdollup. Here I share beginner-friendly tutorials on how to crochet items for American Girl dolls or 18-inch dolls. So hang out with me and I'll show you how to dress your doll up Jessy style. So today we're going to make these cute sweater tops. This first option is just one solid color. Here's where I've switched colors every 2 rows. This is like a ruby or red and a denim, and then this very last one in these shades of pink, I'm going to switch colors every single row. I'm going to crochet along with you and show you how to do every step. So this tutorial is easy and beginner friendly. It fits your 18-inch doll. So that's your American Girl doll, your Our Generation doll, your My Life doll, and we're going to be using a medium number 4 weight yarn and a 5.5 millimeter crochet hook. You're going to need buttons and a needle and thread to sew your buttons on. Other things that might be helpful are scissors and stitch markers. I'm going to be starting with my ruby color or my red color, and I'm going to start off with a slip stitch around my hook. So you can do that whatever method you prefer. There's tons of ways to do it. And then I'm going to chain 39. So to chain, you simply yarn over and pull through, yarn over and pull through. So let's do that 39 times. All right, so this is what your chain should look like. And if we measure it out from here to there, you're looking at about 13 minutes or 13 inches fully stretched. So that's going to be the length we're looking for. So now we're ready to complete our first row. So what we're going to do is we're going to skip the first chain from the hook, which is not the chain around the hook. It's going to be this one right here. So we're skipping this one and we're going into the second chain from the hook, and we're just going to do a single crochet. So to do a single crochet, you insert your hook into the space first. You're going to yarn over, you'll pull through. There are 2 loops on your hook like that, and then you'll yarn over again and pull through those 2 loops. So I'll do that with you again. Insert into your space, yarn over, pull through your loop, 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through those 2 loops. And we're just doing 1 single crochet into every stitch all the way across. All right, once you get done with your first row, you should have 38 single crochets. And now we're ready to begin row 2. So your work is this way, and what you're going to do is kind of flip it like you would you're turning a book page. So flip it this way, and now you're ready to work this direction. So for the first thing I'm going to do on round 2 is I'm going to chain 2. So to chain, you just yarn over and pull through. So there's 2, and now I'm going to do what are called V stitches. So this chain 2 is going to count as my first V stitch, and then I'm going to chain in my V stitch. I'm going to chain in between my stitches. So really I'm chaining 3, and now I'm going to yarn over and do a double crochet. So I'm going to show you how to do a double crochet. You're going to yarn over first, and then you're going to insert into your space, and in this case I'm going into the space where I started my chain from. Okay, and then I'm going to yarn over again and pull my loop through, and there are 3 loops on my hook. I'm going to yarn over, pull through 2, and then yarn over one more time and pull through the last 2. Okay, so that counts as a V stitch. So what a V stitch is, I'll show you again. So now we're going to skip 1 space, and then in this next one we're going to start another V stitch. So a V stitch is going to be a double crochet and then chain and then a double crochet. So it's 2 double crochets with a chain in between them. Okay, so like I said, I'm going to skip this stitch and go into this one and start my V stitch with my first double crochet. So I'm going to yarn over first, and then I'm going to go into this space, yarn over again, pull out. There are 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2, there are 2 loops on my hook, yarn over again and pull through those 2. Now I'm going to chain 1, so I just yarn over and pull through, that's a chain, and now I'm going to do another double crochet back into that same stitch to complete my V-stitch. So here we go, insert, yarn over, come out, 3 loops on my hook, yarn over, pull through 2 loops, yarn over, pull through 2 more loops. Okay, so now I have 2 V stitches and I'm just going to repeat this pattern. So skip this stitch and this stitch, I will do another V stitch. So I'll do this with you really quick, and that's all round 2 is going to be, is just V stitch, skip a stitch, V stitch. Okay, so now I have 3 complete. Remember, don't chain in between your stitches. Remember to skip this one, and then we'll do a double crochet, boom, chain 1, and then do another double crochet in that same space. So I'll meet you once I've made it all the way across. All right, so here you can see I've almost made it all the way across. I have 18 V-stitches so far, so you're gonna have 19 total. I'll do this last one with you. So it looks like I have 3 spaces left, but really what this is where we skipped that space when we started. We started from our second chain from the hook. So I'm just gonna complete this V-stitch. Boom, and that's how it's gonna look. Okay, so now we're ready to start row 3. All right, so if you are not changing colors at this point, what you're gonna do is just chain 3. So you go 1, 2, 3. Okay, and I'll show you what you're gonna do if you are changing colors. So you've completed this stitch, and then I'll just take my yarn and pull it through, and then I'll grab my scissors and I'll just cut that off where I pulled it through, and then I can pull this yarn out. So you pull tight, nothing's gonna come undone, and then we'll grab our next color. I'll take whatever color I'm using next, and again I will do a slip knot around my hook, and then from my work I'm gonna go into that first V-stitch, and I will just do a slip stitch. So to do a slip stitch, you're just going to yarn over and pull through. I'm going to work my tail end in right here. So I have both of these. So if you can see, let me show you again. Okay, so slip knot around my hook. I'm going to insert my hook into this first V, and then I'm taking both my tail end and my working yarn and I'm wrapping it around my hook, and I'm going to pull it through the V-stitch and also through this loop, okay? And now I'm going to do the same thing with all of this, and I'm just going to chain 3. So there's 1, 2, and 3, okay? And I've worked my tail in so I don't have to worry about weaving it in later. And now, if you were same color, your red yarn would just be right here. So we're in the same spot, okay? And I'm gonna flip my work again like a book. So I'm going this direction now. So I've done a chain 3, which is gonna be, count as a double crochet for this first shell stitch, which I'm now gonna do on top of the V stitches, okay? Okay, so if you are switching every other row instead of every 2 rows before you complete this last double crochet, just take your next color, no slip knots or anything, and finish it off with that last double crochet stitch, and then we're just going to drop this yarn and leave it attached. I'll show you what to do with the dropped yarn in just a minute. So here's the double crochet. I'm going to yarn over, go into the V stitch, and just complete my double crochet like so, okay? And then I'm going to chain 1, and then I'm going to do 2 more double crochets into my V stitch. So there's 1, and this will be 2. Okay, so there's my first shell stitch. And we're gonna do this all the way across. So 1 in every V-stitch, so we should have 19 shell stitches. Once we're done, I'll show you again. So in this V-stitch, I'm gonna start with a double crochet. So there's 1. And here is 2. And then you chain 1. So to chain, you just yarn over and pull through. And then I will work 2 more double crochets into this very same V-stitch. You can kind of pull them together. Alright, so that's what that looks like. I'm going to go ahead and keep working, and I will meet you once we've made it all the way across, and I'll show you what to do at the very end. Okay, real quick, I'm going to show you what to do if you're doing the 2 colored method every other row. So it's the same process, you'll just have an extra piece of yarn that you're going to drop. So as you work your first shell stitch after you've done your chain of 3, you want to go into that space and then just make sure that you have that back, see right here, that back light pink one. You're just going to do your shell stitch around that as well as your work. So it's kind of like a dropped piece of yarn that you're just working your stitches into. So every stitch is going to go around that dropped piece of yarn. Okay, so here I've almost made it to the end of my row 3, and you can see I have this last V-stitch left. So I'll just go ahead and finish off my very last shell stitch in there, which is just like we've been doing, your 2 double crochet and then chain 1 and then do 2 double crochet. Okay, and that completes that. And now we're ready for round 4, or row 4, not round. So what's happening is after round 3, we're kind of looking like an overlapping circle. This is going to be our neck brim. So we're just going to chain 3 to start our next row, which would be row 4, right? Yes. So 1, 2, 3, and then I'll turn our work, and then we are ready to go into this stitch, this shell stitch with another shell stitch. So to do that, I'm going to yarn over, and I'm going to go into the stitch and do a double crochet. And then on our previous round, if you didn't switch colors, you probably just had like your V-stitch, how do I explain it? Your V-stitch on top of your shell stitch. So this time, this chain 3 is just going to be the end of our row. So it's not going to count as a double crochet for our shell stitch. So we did a chain 3 and then we did a double crochet into our previous shell stitch. And so then we'll do another one. So we're doing a shell in the shell is what we're doing. So I did 2 double crochets and now I've chained 1, and then I'll do 2 more double crochets. So this 4th row is just going to be a repeat of the last row, except for we're going into the shell stitches instead of the V stitches. So there's 1, and then you'll find where the chain 1 is in your next shell stitch, and you'll just go ahead and continue on. So once again, I will meet you once I'm at the end of this row. So once you're at the end of the row, just finish up your last shell stitch. All right, so if you're doing the 2 color method, switching every other row, this is how you're going to finish off the rows, and you'll do this every time you change rows from now on. So I've almost completed my shell stitch. Here's my 2 double crochets, my chain 1, and my 3rd double crochet. So I'm going to finish off with my 4th double crochet. Okay, but before I complete it, I'm going to drop the color of yarn that I'm working with and pick up the other one to complete that stitch, okay? And then I can kind of pull everything not too tight, but you don't want it to be loose, okay? And now I'm picking up my light pink, which is what I'm going to use for the next row. So I'm going to chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and then I'm going to turn my work so all my tail ends and my working yarn are going to come to the other side. And then I want to take my dark pink color and pull it behind so that it is now behind my work, and I can move it along just like I did with the light pink color the previous row. So I'll make sure that everything is still nice and tight. Here's my chain 3, and then I'm going to go into the top of the chain space of the shell and making sure that I'm grabbing that pink, the dark pink dropped yarn, okay? And did I yarn over first? I don't think I did. So I'm going to yarn over first because I'm doing a double crochet here. Oops, and it's kind of, it is kind of tricky, but just make sure it stays dropped. Okay, so there is my first double crochet completed. You're just going to continue doing your double crochets, making sure that you're going around that drop piece of yarn, and you'll do that on every shell stitch you do. This once, so if you need to come back to this place in the video every time you switch rows and watch this again, you can. It's just going to be the same every time. Alright, and here is how we are going to finish up this row with your 2 double crochets and then your chain 1, and then go back in the same stitch and do 2 more. Okay, and that finishes off your last shell stitch. Okay, so now what we are going to do is, if you are not changing colors, just go ahead and chain 3 and then flip your work. If you are changing colors, you can tie off your work like we did previously when we changed colors, or I'll show you, this is just a different options for transitioning. So I've undone my last double crochet here, and I'm gonna do it again. So there's 1, but I'm not gonna finish this last stitch. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna bring in my red color here, no slip stitch or knot or anything, and I'm just gonna finish my stitch with that color, okay? And now I'm gonna take both of my working yarn and my tail end of my red, and I've just dropped my blue for now, and I'm gonna go ahead and chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. Okay, and that's weaving my tail end at the same time, as well as preventing it from coming undone. And then we'll turn our work. So if you hadn't changed colors, you would have just chained 3. And then you're ready to begin your next shell on top of your shell. So a shell and a shell. So we'll do the same thing that we did over here. This chain 3 right here is not going to be part of our shell. So it's just how we're going to start our row. So we'll yarn over and then we'll go into the shell with our double crochet followed by another double crochet, and you get the idea. We're just gonna this row is gonna be a repeat of the previous row. So I'll let you work on it on your own, and then I'll meet you once we get again to over here on the other side. So I've done, I guess, 2 shell stitches. I forgot to tell you what we're gonna do with this blue yarn. I'm just going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut it off, but I'm going to cut enough off to weave my tail end, and then I'll worry about it later. Okay, so this is almost to the end of round 5. I've done all my self stitches, and now to complete the end, I've finished this one, and I'm just going to do a double crochet into this space right here where we did our chain. So yarn over, go into that space, and there's a double crochet, and now I'm going to chain 3 again to start row 6. So I'm going to 1, 2, 3, and then we'll turn our work, and then this is just going to be, this is actually the row where we're going to do our sleeves. So I'll show you what's going to happen here. So we're going to make these fan stitches right here, if you can see. So row 6 is going to be our sleeve row. So the first 3 stitches, or the first 3 shells, are just going to be those regular shell stitches. So I'm going to put a stitch marker in this one so I don't go too crazy and go further than I'm wanting to, and I'll remember to know when to start up my sleeves. So I will meet you once we have these 3 shell stitches done. So once you have those 3 done, then in the space right here between the shells, I'm just going to do a single crochet. So I'm going to insert my hook through here, yarn over, and then just pull through, okay? And I'll remove my space mark, or my stitch marker. That probably wasn't really necessary, but it's a good thing if you're a beginner. Okay, so now we're ready to do the this sleeve part right here. So we're gonna do what we call a fan shell stitch. So basically, from this single crochet right here, I'm going to do double crochets into the space right here. So the chain space at the top of our shell from the previous row. So there's 1 double crochet. We're going to go in there 5 times. So there's 2. So this is kind of just the same as what we've been doing, except where we're replacing that chain 1 with a double crochet. Okay, there's 4, so 1 more. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochets into the top of that shell stitch. And then in the spaces in between the shells right here, we're just going to do a single crochet. And then I'm ready to repeat that fan shell stitch on top of this. So again, I'm going to go into this space and just do 5 double crochets. Okay, and then when you're finished with your 5, go in the spaces in between the shells and just do a single crochet, and then you can start on your next one. So we're going to do, it's kind of hard to tell them apart, but we're going to do 4 of these. So again, here we have 1, 2, this will be 3, 4. You could put your stitch marker here, so you or here, wherever, so you know where to stop. So I'll meet you once I'm to this point. Alright, so I'm going to remove my stitch marker and I will finish up this last shell fan stitch with just a single crochet. Okay, and now I'm ready to go back to my regular shell stitches. So I'm just going to count this out. So over here I did 1, 2, 3, If you can tell, we're just matching it up. And then I could put a stitch marker here so I know where my sleeves are going to start. And then there'll be 1, 2, 3, 4. So I can also put a stitch marker right here. Okay, so I've kind of marked this off. I've done my 4, these are my 3 regular shell stitches, and then I've done 4 of my fan shell stitches. And then I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, which I'm going to go back to doing these stitches right here. So your regular shell stitches. And then I've marked it off. I'll do 4 again of the fan shell stitches for the sleeve. And then the last 3, I'm going to go back to the regular shell stitches. So here, after I've done my single crochet and attached, I'm just going to go back to doing my 2 double crochet, with a chain 1, and then 2 more double crochet, like so. And then there's no single crochet in the spaces between now, right? So we're just going back to what we've done in the previous row. So don't go here, go to the top of the shell stitch where that chain 1 is and start your next shell stitch. So I'm going to work these next few and I'll let you work that on your own, and then I'll meet you over here when I'm ready to work this sleeve again. So once I've completed that final shell, then I'm going to remove my stitch marker, and before I start my sleeves, I'm going to go in the space in between the shells and just do a single crochet around the space, and then I'm ready to start my fan shells. So again, it's like we did before. We are just going to do 5 double crochets into the top of the previous shell stitch. And then in the space in between the shell stitches, we'll just do a single crochet, and then we'll start the next one. So we'll do that for the next 3. I'll meet you when I'm to the stitch marker. So go ahead and remove your stitch marker, and then just finish up with this space with your single crochet. And now we're going to go back to just doing a regular shell stitch for the next 3 stitches. And we've done these multiple times. You know how to do them now, so I'll meet you once we've finished. Okay, and then once you've completed your last shell stitch, we're going to yarn over and we're going to go around this chain 3 where we started the previous row and end with a double crochet. Okay, so that is the end of round 6. We're looking almost like a full circle right now. We've got our shells and then our fan shells for our sleeves. And now for round 7, we're gonna make our armholes. So I'm gonna switch colors. If you're not switching colors, you don't need to do this step, but I'm just gonna yarn over and pull through. And then I will cut my yarn off there, pull it out, everything's tight so it's not coming undone. Okay, and here's another option of how to attach your yarn. You can play with all of these options and decide which one you like best. So I've just stuck my crochet needle through that space in between the shell and in between the double crochet. I have no slip knot, I just have loose yarn, and then I'm gonna go ahead and pull that through so everything is just loose. And then I will just do a slip stitch to attach it, okay? And then from there, I can go ahead and chain 3. So 1, 2, 3. And you could have worked your tail end with that chain stitch in, or you can weave it in later. There are so many options, whatever method works best for you. So I've chained 3, and now I'm gonna flip my work. So this is gonna be row 7 and a yarn over, and we're just gonna do the shell stitches in these first 3 shells, just like we've been doing, so you know how to do it. 2 double crochets, and then a chain, and then 2 more double crochets all into the same stitch, which is the space on top of the previous shell stitch from the row. So I'm going to meet you once I've got these 3 completed. So there it is, those 3 completed. Now what we're going to do is we're going to skip these 4. So right, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we're going to jump. So just kind of fold it in half. There's our sleeve. Jump to the top of this next one, and we're just going to go in with a double crochet and start our next shell stitch. So there it is. This is going to be our armhole, and then we'll just work shell stitches all the way until we get to the top of this one. So we'll do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 shell stitches now. So here I'm going to show you just real quick what you do if you are dropping your color and using the 2 colors. So we're going to do the same thing that we did if you were just doing one color, or if you're not switching every other color. So once you get to the part where your sleeve is, fold it in half, and then we're still going to bring our dropped color with us underneath. So I'm going to yarn over and just pull everything tight as I do this stitch. So pull tight and then yarn over, and we're still just going around our dropped yarn. And we'll complete this shell stitch, and then just keep this dropped all the way until we get over to the sleeve. I'm now going to finish the tutorial in these pink colors, so whether you're dropping your yarn or not, we're going to follow along, so you can just ignore the dropped part, just so I don't confuse you from going back and forth and having to watch multiple parts. So if you're not doing the drop, just ignore the dropped yarn, but the tutorial is going to be the same otherwise. Just follow the same steps. Here's my 5 shell stitches, and then I've made it to where my sleeve is. So I'm going to do the same thing. I'll fold in half, and I'm going to keep my dropped yarn ready to work in, and then I'll yarn over and then go into the top of this stitch right here, and then just do the first double crochet of my shell stitch, and then I'll go ahead and finish it, and then I'll finish the rest of these 3 shells. Alright, and once you've finished your row 7, you should have 11 shell stitches on the bottom of your work, and then you should have your sleeves put together. So this is what it's looking like at this point. So I'll go ahead and finish off row 7 with you. So I've just done my shell stitch, and now like we've finished all the other rounds, I'm going to yarn over and I'm going to do just a double crochet at the very end. And if you're changing colors, don't finish that stitch, but drop that color, grab your other color, and then finish it with that stitch. Okay, and then we'll flip our work. We're gonna chain 3 to start this row. 1, 2, 3, and regardless of what color scheme you're using, now you're just gonna do 11 shell stitches on top of the previous 11 shell stitches from the row, and this is going to be what we're going to do for the rest of our sweater until we get to the very last row. So this would be row 8. We're going to do this for row 9 as well, And then row 10, which is going to be our last row, will be a little bit different. So I'm going to go ahead and meet you when I am ready to start my row 10. So I'm on row 8 right now. So go ahead and do row 8 and row 9 on your own, and I'll meet you at row 10. So here's what my sweater looks like so far. We're just ready to do our last round. So I'm going to complete row 9 with you. I've done all my 11 shell stitches, and then I'm going to just go in between the space where I have chained 3, starting the previous row and my shell space, and then do a double crochet. If you're switching colors, don't complete the double crochet. You're going to pick up your remaining color. So on all the other rows we've left this one dropped, but this last row we don't need this color anymore because we're done. So I'm going to take both of my colors and I'm going to pull them through, okay? And then I'm no longer going to use this dark pink anymore, okay? So I'm going to pull it through, and then I can keep pulling it all the way through, right? Snip it off, pull it out. Okay, so that's tied off and that's not going to come undone, okay? And now I will flip my work, and I'm going to work this tail end as I go, kind of like my dropped yarn before, so that I don't have to weave it in later. But to start this one, if you didn't change colors, you would still just have your hook like right here, right? So, and then on all the other rows, we've chained 3 right here, but we're not going to chain 3. We're just going to start with our double crochet, right? So I have my yarn attached, and I'm going to go over, and we're going to do those shell fan stitches like we did on the sleeves. So remember, they're just 5 double crochets into the same stitch. So here's 3, this will be 4. Okay, and that's 5. And then in the spaces in between my shells, we're gonna do a 1 single crochet, and I'm still just gonna continue to work my tail end as I go. So now I'm yarning over again, and I'm going to do the same thing in the top of the next shell, just 5 double crochets into the same stitch. We're going to do that all the way to the end. All right, then once you get to the end, we'll finish off this final fan shell by just doing a slip stitch where that chain 3 is from the previous row, and then I'm just going to pull it through one more time so it forms a knot, and then I will cut this off with leaving enough yarn to weave in my tail ends. And that is our sweater. It's complete. You can wear it this direction or this direction. So once you are all finished, you'll want to sew your tail ends in. If you did it this method, you should only end up with like 1 tail end. And if you did it where you cut off your yarn and changed colors every time, you'll have to sew in more tail ends. But I'm going to snip my yarn off so that I can thread it more easily. All right, and once you have it threaded, you can go ahead and weave it in. I like it to put it through one direction, just through like the shell fan stitch right here, and then pull it all the way in, and then I'm going to go kind of back the other direction, and then I'll go with the same direction that I did the first time. So just weave it back and forth at least 3 times in different directions, and then I'm good to cut off my tail end, the rest of it, and it won't come undone. So make sure you weave all your tail ends in. That's the secret to making your work look professional and finished. So you can use thread, or you can use yarn if your buttonhole is big enough that yarn and your needle will fit through it. So I've overlapped it, threaded it through, and now I'm just gonna tie a double knot on the end. I've put my button where I'm gonna place it. So right here, I know that that's where my chain is. So I wanna make sure that my button is going to match up in the right spot. So I'm going to hold it about right there. I'm going to start from the back. And then just pull it through. If you're using yarn, it should catch and it won't go through. If you're using like actual thread, before you throw it all the way through, I'll show you what to do. So I'm gonna stick this one through and pull it, but before I got to this knot, I would kind of just hold it and then make sure that the next part, this is actually way easier so you can see than if I was using thread too for demonstrations purposes. So I'm gonna go in between those 2 threads, if you will. Let me pull it out a little bit so you can see it. So, okay, you wouldn't have pulled it all the way through. And then you take your existing thread and pull it through here to catch it so that your yarn won't pull through your work. So that's that. Because I did it with the yarn, I probably can't get my needle through there again. But if I was using thread, I would do that a bunch of times and then finish it off. And then over here, you can kind of just like grab a stitch again, and then just tie it off. And then because I have this yarn, I'm just gonna kind of weave it in to hide it. But you wouldn't need to do this if you were using thread. And then I'll weave it back towards this direction. And then maybe through these stitches. Okay, and then I can cut it off right here. So that's how you sew a button on. I'll show you, we can cut off those other ends as well. So right there, everything matches up. Cute, huh? And then I'll do one more on the bottom. So I hope your sweater turned out. I think they're super cute. I really like this pattern. Thanks so much if you made it all the way through and watched this whole video.